Good morning, Valerie here. How are you going today? I am coming to you live from yet another car park. It seems to be a really popular place. I realize that is because long drives and podcasts really percolate in my head, and then it comes out in this stream of reflective thinking. This morning, in New South Wales, Australia, and probably all around Australia, school holidays are imminently descending upon us. And during this time, as a parent, I very often get asked the question of, how are you preparing for this? And I guess the assumption that is that I must be dreading it, or I must be somehow, needing to down a bunch of substances in anticipation of this very long holiday. In Australia, the holiday goes across our summer, and kids pretty much have about 8 weeks. Some schools even more of school holidays. And I have been, in the past, when I was asked this question, particularly when my kids were younger, I'd kind of just bat it off as being, I love my kids. Children are not easy. That's just part and parcel of the job, right? And I'd bat this off. And of recent times, I've started to really lean into this question and really ask myself, because I've really only got a couple of years left of being a parent to school-age children. What is the whole deal with school holidays? What is the thing? What's kind of your anchoring point? And I think particularly since I've been doing work in the energy and burnout space, one of my primary motivators to hustle in this space is really because I worry about the kids that are growing up watching us, adults, and the world around them hustle to the point of break point. And the software, if you like, that goes underneath that, which is that we're not enough, we're not good enough. Not only that we're not good enough, that we are not enough, that we're stuck, that we're trapped, that we've got to do things this way. And that really, really bothers me. And here's the reason why. Because that's not what our kids are going to need in 10, 15, 20 years. That is absolutely rubbish to them. Rubbish. Put that in a trash bag and put it outside right now. That's not what the kids are going to need. Let me give you a context and a story today. Right now, my 2 high schoolers are out on a mission. One of them is learning to conquer a particular fear, and it involves the 2 of them buddying up to basically figure out a quest. They've received a quest. They're on it together, and they are using a bunch of stuff. The particular quest is to conquer public transport, all right? Kind of, how do I do this? Now, if I had sat them down and done it my way, which is absolutely what I wanted to do to maintain control, right? This is how I wanted to teach them the way of the world, right? I would have said, I want you to go and get, one of those bus routes. They used to be paper and they'd sit there. I was willing to adapt to the digital way. Google the bus route, download the timetable, map out the plan on Post-its, and then figure out your landmarks to get there, know the time, and then plan, which then requires you to figure out what time to wake up this morning, what time to have breakfast, what time to sleep, what you need to put in your bag. This is how I would have done it, right? Precision, accuracy, information gatherings. This is not how my 2 have done it at all. As we sat to dinner last night, and I let them manage this because really I was like, this is a bit curious. They're not listening to anything I've been saying for the last few weeks in preparation for this quest. Let's have a listen to what they're actually doing. None of that stuff that I had spieled over the weeks. They were using adaptive thinking, and they were using each other as networks. It was fascinating to watch. Adaptive thinking just meant that they started with the outcome that they wanted, which is pretty sweet. They're going to go and have, I hope, lunch together at a particular mall, which is like, you know, the celebration. Anyways, they started with the outcome, and they used their digital networks, they used their social networks to adapt their route to basically get to it. And here was the most interesting thing. It wasn't about precision. They didn't want to know beforehand what the data was. They were equipping themselves with a set of resources to make on-the-moment decisions. And what was even more fascinating to me was the older one, whom I thought I schooled well in the way to do public transport. I realized, and didn't even know this, told me, you know, pretty much just told me that when they were doing this way back then, they discovered that my way was completely maladaptive. So they reinvented the way of doing it, and they were teaching their sibling. It was not so important for them to have pre-planned precision, but to gather information as they went along. So using Google, keeping up to date with, what the times were, if there were delays, what the weather was like, what the traffic was like, and just micro adjusting their steps, and also forecasting to say what's the worst thing that could happen. If that's the worst thing that could happen, you would just do this and do this and do this. And as I listened to that, I thought this is a far more superior method to managing public transport. It probably addresses some of the reasons why I have problems taking public transport and then get annoyed when things are running late. So here's the thing. Kids in the future are going to need adaptability, right? They're going to need a couple of things, and here's what I would love to share with you. Number one, yes, it is really important for them to know the rules, and when they're younger, to abide by a set of code, which is, you know, the moral codes, the law codes, and the values that you are bringing them up in. Absolutely. But they're going to need to learn to bend reality. In fact, they're going to need to accept that they can bend reality, that reality can be bent. When I was first starting to really gain some momentum in my business, I used to say, I've got to break out of the matrix. I've got to break out of the matrix. The thing that I see in front of me is not the reality. I've got to be able to basically bend reality to create the outcome that I need. So kids are going to need to do that. And so when this is happening during school holidays, don't get annoyed. Don't think that they're going behind you or not following your way. Our ways are probably outdated. Let's remain curious. Let's have a look and see how they're doing the sand pit. How are they doing the swing set? How are they doing the Lego? How are they doing the baking? How are they doing the clean? Tune in and be curious, right? So yes, they've got to abide by a set of rules, morals, values, you know, the household guidelines, and be a part of a contributing member of the family. Other than that, watch how they're adapting. So kids of today will grow up to become adults who need to actually bend reality and alter that. Why? Because adaptability is actually what is really, really required in emerging economies, right? So when we actually look at what our kids are up against, climate change, political, the kinds of politics that we have these days, they're not stable. They change. Our information, what's true, what's false, what's fact, what's fiction, they're having their attention grabbed all the time. They're going to need to be adaptable and make things for themselves. So here's my other thing that I would like to say. Use the school holidays to help them to really just have a bunch of experiments and experiences that are not expensive. Oh, there were 3 E's there. Experiments, experiences that are not expensive. Money cannot buy everything. What we can provide for them in the school holidays is some explorations and environments, new environments that they can be in, things that they may not, we don't have to call them hobbies. We can just call them what's in the kitchen drawer. Let's see what we can do with that. What's in the garage? Have you ever seen a toolbox? Let's kind of figure out what materials we have. Resourcefulness and resilience. These are some of the things. So Here's what I would suggest to you. School holidays is meant to be messy. It has to be messy because they go out of the school of education, the formal education, back into your homes for the school of life. And life is messy. Life is messy. You will fight. You will argue. You will get angry. You will want to throw one another out of the windows. That is all part of being messy. The school of life teaches us how to deal with relationships, how to deal with conflict, how to put up with one another's mess, how to bend, how to yield, how to accommodate. As long as we are referencing a set of, morals, values, ethics, that guide that behavior. It is actually not supposed to be a time when parents display perfect parenting. It's a time for us to display adaptable parenting. If we can help ourselves to relax, and if we can help our kids to experiment and explore and have a bunch of experiences that just feeds them, well, then we will have school holidays that have a bit of meaning, a bit of purpose, and you won't have to have a neat house. You won't have to have the postcards are outdated now. Hey, you won't need to have the curated Instagram post that shows that you are having a most wonderful, magical school holiday. None of that. Adaptability is key. All right, take care.